Well, good morning to everybody. Good morning for those of you who are visiting with us. We're glad that you're here. Those of you who have returned to us, we're glad that that's the case as well. We have some folks still coming in, so that's just fine, but I'll go ahead and introduce this morning's speaker for the Bible class hour, and then we'll turn it over to him. Frank Williams is here with us today. He has a lovely wife named Glenda of a certain number of years, and they are happy together, and the Lord has blessed them. She's a house mom at Freed-Hardeman University. She tends to the dormitory Scott Hall, and one of the ladies in her dorm is Eli's fiance, Valley. And so I've heard a lot of good things about your wife and the work she does there at Freed-Hardeman for the young ladies in the dorms. And we're thankful that you're here today, brother. He's a West Virginia boy. Don't hold that against him. He's a businessman. He worked at Freed-Hardeman University in church relations for 8 years while I was there attending undergrad. He then is now the Director of Development for Latin American Mission, and that's a post he's been serving in for 4 years, helping to connect them and lead campaigns and to pair the missions with supporting congregations. We're here this morning to be uplifted and encouraged about the work that's going on throughout those regions, and also equipped to be able to be more supportive to the involvement that we have with the Liberia Church of Christ in Guanacaste. But he has experience throughout the whole region, and we will enjoy being with you today. He'll also stick around after services. He'll be at the fellowship meal with us as well. He has some literature and some pamphlets and brochures that he's brought with him. I encourage everyone to stick around and get a chance to say hi to him and to find out more about our part in the missions and his part in the missions and what the Lord's doing through them. So without further ado, Brother Frank, thank you for being with us today.
Good morning. I hope everybody is doing well. I'm reminded of the time that Peter was on the Mount of Transfiguration and with Moses and Elijah, and he turned and he said, "It's really good to be here, and it's good to be with God's people." I get to travel. I'm privileged to travel well outside the country, but I visit a lot of congregations in the United States, and I get to meet, and I'm sure that would be the same case here today, with some of the best people in the world. I have had a great passion for the church. I love the Church of Christ. There's a lot of reasons that I love the Church of Christ. I love the people. I love its mission. And I really love the fact that we want to go back and speak where the Bible speaks. I am convinced, and we see this all the time when we're working in Latin America, and I think it works here in the United States. It would work in the United States. If you were to take a man and give him a Bible, and this man is not aware of any of the other denominational teachings in the world, he would read that Bible and he would come to know the Lord's church. Because what happens in the States is, primarily, and even in Central America, people open the Bible and they begin to read, and if they will compare that to what they've been taught by some denominational group, which is contrary of what God has planned for us. So the church is very special. And I noticed just a couple different things before I start in this presentation. People will say to you, "Won't you come to my church? I want to welcome you to my church." You ever said that? Ladies and gentlemen, it's not my church. It's the Lord's church. And the only way we can be in the Lord's church is to follow what it says in the New Testament. You don't have to be voted in. You don't have to be approved by some board. You don't have to be blessed by some hierarchy or religious hierarchy. All you have to do is follow the Word of God. So this morning, I want to share with you a work that's been going on since 1958. And I will say this also about this congregation. You have been so faithful in supporting two men, one in Costa Rica and one in Panama. And as we were talking a little earlier, this young lady down here in the blue, no, this lady over here, this was the one we're talking about, Alan Lopez. I've known Alan Lopez since 1984. And I will share with you the fact that we were on a bus, and if you probably don't recall, there's not as much of that now, but they used to just have school buses, and they were decorated like everything, and they had loud music. We'd be traveling through the city of Panama, going out to preach somewhere. And Alan would just get up in that bus and start preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. And he was not ashamed of the gospel, because it was the power that would lead all men to salvation. But I appreciate this congregation. I appreciate its history. And I'm so looking forward to talking with you more about it. This is our staff. And you'll see back there, I'm looking at the screen, but there's a fellow back there in front of the screen who's got white hair. No, that's your sound guy. That's okay. Yeah. Well, at least he's got some hair back here. Anyway, Carrie Gillis is the director, and Carrie does a great job working with the elders there at Forest Park. And by the way, we are under that leadership. So we have Carrie, we have Kirk Brothers. I don't know if you're familiar with Kirk Brothers or not. I hope you are. Kirk Brothers is the director of curriculum at our school. John Farber is director of the medical missions team that we do. My name there is Frank, and I'm director of development. And then we have Greg. Greg is director of the school facilities. He goes down and makes sure the school itself is okay. Now, I'm going to have to listen to this one for just a few minutes.
I wish I had a way to explain really what mission work accomplished in a way that verbally a person could hear it and understand it. Because if that were the case, all Christians would go out and be so active in mission work?
Well, just God has called us. As I think about what is fulfilling about mission work to me, it goes back to the fact that Jesus wanted the gospel to go to the world.
When you think of the idea of mission work, sometimes we put it in a little category and we think, well, this is ministry and this is this and this is mission work over here. But in my mind, the job of every Christian is to take the gospel to other people who need it and who have an opportunity, will have an opportunity to respond to it.
So, yeah, the most important thing for us to focus on, for anybody to focus on, is eternity. One way I like to look at it is, a very long physical life on earth is 100 years. If someone lives to be 100 years old, might say, wow, that was a really long life. But 100 years, that's zero compared to eternity. And so what's nice about mission work is that we're focused on saving souls. We're focused on helping people, encouraging people to study the Bible, to obey the gospel. And so there's really nothing more important than that.
And when Jesus, there in Matthew chapter 28, just before he ascended, said, I have all authority in heaven and on earth, and go therefore and make disciples of all nations, teaching them the gospel, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. That was the last thing he gave to his apostles before he ascended. Something that I believe is, I think we all understand to be the Great Commission.
I don't know if you recognize all those folks or not, but the first one was David Shannon. David was the president of Freed-Hardeman University up until last week, and he has since decided to go back in full-time ministry. And Keith Harris from Texas has taken his spot. Kirk Brothers was president of Heritage Christian University up until about last week or so, and he stepped down to do full-time mission work. The third gentleman that you saw was Kyle Butt. I assume you're familiar with Kyle with Apologetics Press. Kyle was one of our Gringo teachers that goes down and spends a couple weeks every year teaching class. And the final gentleman you saw, or next to the last one, Mike Houts. Mike, at one time, was an atheist. And Mike began to study, and he studied himself. He studied the Bible, and he found himself wanting to be part of the Lord's church that you read about in the New Testament. Now, Mike works for NASA, and he is a research scientist that studies fusion energy, fusion propulsion in the space industry. High-ranking NASA individual, and he also goes down and then teaches apologetics. But the history of Latin American mission starts with two men, Bill Rogers and Bob Bryson. And I didn't know Bill Rogers, but I got to know Bob Bryson in the early 80s, and that's when I became interested in doing mission work. I was working in marketing at a manufacturer, and I decided at that time that that was something I was really interested in, beginning to share the gospel. I'd also taken a course with Ivan Stewart, who wrote a book called Go Ye, means Go Me. And if you don't have that book, I would suggest you get that book, because that'll help you in your evangelistic work here in Hopkinsville. But Bill Rogers and Bob Bryson started going down to Southern Command was located in, this is before we gave the canal away. The Southern Command was in Panama City, Panama, or Ancon actually. And what was happening is Bill and Bob would go down and do church services for the soldiers that were at that post. And they would come off and they would have worship service. And interesting thing happened. They began to invite Panamanians to come with them to service. And they began to invite Kuna Indians, who were on the San Blas Islands on the northern shore of Panama. Hearing the gospel, especially the Kunas, hearing the gospel for the first time, and hearing the Panamanians, most of them have only heard doctrine that's by the Catholic Church, they began to take interest in what the Scripture said, and that church began to grow. So that was in 1958, and Bob and them had this passage, which that's what Kyle read to you, and I've just taken the liberty of highlighting some of the things. The first thing I wanted to say was I highlighted the word go. As you are going, basically, is what that says. As you are going through this life, as you are going through, you high school students, as you're going through your life, and you need to be reaching out to your fellow students and those of us who have a secular job. As we're going through this life, we need to try to make disciples. How do we make disciples? By sharing the Word of God. That's how we make disciples. And if we make a disciple, then we're going to ask them or share with them the fact that they need to be baptized for the remission of their sins. And then at that point, then we need to continue teaching. So Bob and them said, well, we're teaching these people, we are baptizing these people, and they're going back, these native people, and they're going back to their homes. And now what are we going to do? We want them to go from milk to meat. So that was one of the things that they started. Now you may be familiar with a couple different works that we're involved with, and I want to share those with you first before we get to the core mission of what we're doing. We have short-term missions, and young people, this is something that we would love for some of you to look at and maybe be involved with, and some of you folks that might be a little older as well, that to go down and do these short-term missions. If you have not been out of this country and you want to get a realization of what the rest of the world is like, you need to go on a foreign trip. And when you come back, you'll start to begin to appreciate what this country has and what you have because of the benefits that you have. So we have short-term missions, and we have these medical trips. And now the medical trips, you don't have to be a certified nurse or doctor to go, although we take them, and we take pharmacists, we take folks that are going to do the glasses and that type of thing. But only about 10 to 12% of the people that go on a medical trip are actually medically trained. The rest of us are support people. I mean, you could do all kind of different things on these trips, and you'll see some of these young people, some maybe your age, back there as well. And so what I wanted to do is just share with you a few things that we've done. This picture on the left up here is a little baby that we came across in the San Blas Islands, the Kuna Yala, the Kuna Nation. And the mother brought this little baby, very malnourished, and this was quite a few years ago, but I've kept that in every presentation I've done because that made such an impact on me of how privileged we are. Now, you'll notice the Indians there are all in their hand-stitched garments. A lot of those are called, the front plate is called a mullah, and that's Dr. Jim City. Jim has gone on to his award, but he's trying to find a vein where he can actually put an IV in that baby. Now, I don't know if you've seen anything about government health plans. If you've seen how they do not work in some of these other countries, you definitely don't want to have that in the United States. It just doesn't work. Until we got involved, were we able to get this little baby into Panama City for treatment. I don't have any idea if that baby survived or not. But I will tell you this, the Kuna Indians appreciated us making that happen. The other section on the right, sometimes especially out in the Darien jungle, you may come across somebody that's had a machete cut. And in this case, it wasn't a machete. In this case, it was a little cyst that the man needed taken off. So we've done some of those minor things. We don't do anything major. And let me just preface this also. Our medical evangelistic teams, it's not to provide. It is a way, it's a method of showing the Lord's compassion and letting them come and be a part of and hear about the truth. That's what it's designed for. There's no way we can solve all the illnesses in Latin America. There's no way. But we can give them some help and some aid so that they will be more receptive to hearing the gospel of Jesus Christ. The next time you go to the waiting room, how many of you ever had to wait 30 minutes to get in to see the doctor? This hand says, yes, there you go. 3 people have told the truth. The rest of you, I don't know. Anyway, this is a waiting room in Honduras. This is what you do. You get out, and they're fortunate because this case we actually purchased little coverings. If you're sitting out in 100-some degree heat, and they can take it a lot better than we can, the gringos, but this is what you do. And so they'll sit out there, and we have this folks, and we'll move them along, try to get them in. Sometimes the older folks are some of the ones that suffer the most. I don't know how old. I know some of you are probably older than me in here. And these young people, they're back here, they don't have any idea how it is when your old bones and joints don't work anymore. But this lady is here, and we're just trying to help her out and give her some medicine to make it a little bit more comfortable for her. There are sometimes we have to go get somebody. And you can see this man was not able to walk, and so our workers actually went out and got this man and brought him into the clinic. Those are the kind of things that we do on a medical team. And we have, I had to take a picture of this little guy. If you guys would go with me, and I say some of you looking at that little baby and smiling, I've wanted to bring home dozens of these kids. One time we were in the jungle in Darien. Darien is a section between Panama and Colombia that's very dense jungle. The Continental Divide is there. We haven't been back there for quite a few years because of the drug traffic that was there. But we were leaving, we were on Deuce and a Halfs, and we were leaving that area. And a lady came up and offered her baby to Dean Northcutt, who is an elder over in Manchester, Tennessee, and asked him to take her baby to have a better life. Heart-wrenching. But I could have brought home, my wife and I, Glenda and I have had, I think, 6 or 8 foster children, but I would have brought home that little guy right there. He was just chilling out. I couldn't help it. Randy's an elder over at Hendersonville, Tennessee. He goes down every year, and he's very, very involved in Latin America. And we had a pediatrician one year, and the lady down here on the left, on the bottom left, is actually a Honduran. She was, we converted her, I think it was 5 years ago. She is actually a Honduran doctor. And ever since was converted, she takes her vacation and works with us every time we go down. And she's just a phenomenal help. Of course, obviously, she speaks Spanish. This young lady over here I've met, she said you spoke Portuguese. We do have some folks. Kirk Brothers does some work in Portugal, or in Brazil, but we've not yet branched out and done anything in that particular country. But we're in about every other country down there. So now here's some of the young people that you might be interested in that's helping us. This little lady here on the right with the braids, Abigail, she's up there. And you're thinking like, well, they're just sitting around. Well, they're sitting around because right then that they're having a break. But we are in a pavilion center there in Zambrano, Honduras, and they are packing medicine. Now, we used to carry medicine down there to the different countries, but we can't do that anymore because the governments have gotten so where they won't let us. If we bring it in, they want to charge us duty, and by the time we pay the duty, we might as well just buy it in country. So that's what we do. But then we have to take that medicine and sort it out and count pills. I've counted tens of thousands of pills out in little different packages for them to give away. So we're providing medicine to them. At the end of that line, while they're waiting for their medicine to be filled out, their prescriptions, we asked them if they would be willing to have a Bible study. Well, a lot of them do. And so we have another section, usually a section there or another part of the building where, and we don't always go to the same place. We're going to San Francisco in Honduras in a couple weeks. But we have the preachers in Honduras. There's 28 of them, and many of them come and work with us. And so we offer Bible studies. And this gentleman here, the black gentleman in that picture, Frank, he's from Mississippi. That is the workingest man and his wife. They'll do anything. And he's doing Bible studies. The guy in the yellow shirt in the middle is from Illinois. and I can't remember that young man on the right. We do a lot of Bible studies. And you know, when you have a Bible study and somebody accepts the gospel of Christ, it has an eternal impact, doesn't it? So you'll see that this we have a portable baptistry we take, and we've baptized in the ocean, in between the waves to baptize somebody. We baptized in some of the jungle rivers where you have to look and see what's in the river before you get in the water. But these people are willing to do anything to become a child of God. Now, this is where the young people might want to pay a little attention, is that the young evangelistic servants. That's Kerry on the right-hand side there. Kerry is the director, but he also runs these groups and takes the young people down to do vacation Bible schools, to do door knocking, that type of thing. And so it's an exciting thing. I really wish a couple things for the young people in our country. First off, I'd like them to spend 2 years in the military or some type of thing to mature a little bit. But I'd also like to get them excited about mission work. And if you send these young people down there on one of these campaigns, don't be surprised when they come back that they are so fired up that will drive you crazy about mission work. Wouldn't that be exciting? To have young people come back and actually be fired up about sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ, especially with those of their class or the ones that they attend school with. So, young evangelistic servants, here's a group of them. And the very top on there, I don't know if y'all are familiar with Florida School of Preaching, but the guy in the very back with the white hair, Brian, he's president at Florida School of Preaching. I've mentioned these people, David, Kirk, Kyle, Mike, and Brian, to let you know that we are not a fly-by-night organization. We're not. Been around a long time. We are full of seasoned, sound preachers. Now, the word sound, I know, understand, you can look at that two different ways. However, they are all involved. Kirk does a future minister training camp. He does them all over, including Brazil. He does them all over the country, South America. He does them in Mexico, all the way down to Peru and Chile. And he takes his own group. Now, this group is not a group that you can actually go on because he takes specific teachers with him. But he wants to prepare them to deliver sermons, do evangelism, train them about the importance of elders. Now, y'all have 6 elders, is that right? I think 6 elders, 5 elders? You have 5 elders. And people ask me all the time, well, what about down in Latin America? Well, don't they have any elders? Well, the answer is the majority don't. And the majority don't because they're so small. And in that particular culture, it's kind of a macho culture. But it's harder to convert men, and I think probably here in the States, than it is a woman. She's much more, her heart's usually more tender and not as independent. That's the way God made her, and I'm glad He made them that way. But what it's like to be a leader in worship and also to be a minister. And theirs is one of the groups that he had, and what happens is they go and when do I stop? That thing says 12:48. I haven't been going that long. What time zone are y'all on here? I'll tell you what, it'll be over when I finish. Is that okay? All right. So that's the kind of group that he had, and a lot of those young men might possibly be a student at the Bible School of the Americas. Here's some of the things that happened this past summer. We knocked on 2,400 doors. We had 5,700 contacts that we worked with in Bible studies. When we left this summer, we had 330 some that we needed to follow up on, which we had not done at that point in time. So we did 1,000 Bible studies. And out of that 1,000 Bible studies, we had 55 baptisms and 2 restorations. Now you look at those figures and say, oh, that's not very good. Tell that to the person that was baptized, become a member of the Lord's church. You know. What's it worth to let somebody know the gospel of Jesus Christ? That's what it boils down to. We did a lot of, saw those 1,100 patients and filled 4,000 prescriptions. And that is a lot of prescriptions that we fill. Now, I want to tell you that there's more about what Latin American Missions does. Everything that you have seen right up to this point is works that we do as Latin American missions, but that is not necessarily the only thing we do. Last year, we spent $274,000 in benevolence and disaster relief. I don't raise money for the benevolence unless it's a special need. Okay, my concentration is the trips that you take, the mission trips, are all self-funded. The person going on that trip will have to pay for the team expenses and they have to pay for their own airfare. I just booked a flight to Honduras a couple weeks ago, and unfortunately the prices are up because of fuel. It costs $1,200 to go round trip to Honduras. Doesn't take long, but it costs $1,200. I guess I could have got a cheaper ticket if I was in the baggage department, but it takes about $1,200, between $1,000 and $1,200. And team expenses can run $1,200, $1,400. That just kind of gives you an idea. Flight, obviously, is from before you leave. But if you have a hurricane in the south, in Florida and the Gulf, do you know that impacts Latin America? It impacts. We don't hear that, but we've had to replace vehicles. We've had to replace homes. We've taken care of people's emergency surgery. We've taken care of surgery, operations like that, special needs. And so we may come out and say, I want you to, could you contribute to the disaster relief fund? What we have used for this year, we used $20,000 for that particular fund this year to take care of some preachers that lost their support. Sometimes congregations will wait to November and say, well, we're going to drop support of so-and-so. And we don't know that in time to go out and try to help find him support. That is not our focus, to try to find him support. But the elders at Valdosta have said, we are not going to let a preacher of the kingdom of the Lord go without money to eat. We're not going to do it. So we took out of the benevolence fund approximately $20,000 to cover some preachers that lost their support. Not because of anything they had done, but because congregations either quit or individuals quit for one reason or another. So, and fortunately, I've replaced all those. I've been able to find people to take over those preachers, like y'all do for Alan and the young man in Costa Rica. So, but I need to replace some of those funds. Now, that's one of the things we do that is not necessarily part of it. We funnel $530,000 through the Forest Park Church in Valdosta, Georgia. This is support that you send to Alan, for example. It comes to Valdosta. We then turn around using our connections, and we send that on to Alan for him to use. We do that for 87 preachers of the Lord's church. We're not trying to be a missionary society. We're just using that to get the funds to them. We have good electronic communications with a lot of banks and a lot of individuals. Some countries, we sent it to one man in Honduras. We sent it to another man in Nicaragua. And Nicaragua is a really tough situation. You need to pray for those preachers there and pray for the preachers in Venezuela. We have to be very careful how we send money so the government won't try to take their support. And finally, I have no idea what time it is or when I'm supposed to stop. Do you ring a bell or something? And what time is it now? 9:33? And I get to go to 9:45? Oh, let me go back and show. No, let's see. And finally, I want to talk what our core mission is. Now, I put this at the end because this is one of the last things I want you to listen to. The work started in 1958. So, in 1965, Bill and Bob said, we've got to have some preachers that know the gospel of Jesus Christ so they can share that with everybody. So remember, we want to take them from milk to solid food. So how shall they call on him who they have not believed? How shall they believe in him of whom they have not heard? And how shall they hear without a preacher? Romans 10:14. I love preachers. I am not a preacher. Tim said, do you want to speak? I said, nope. I think what the thing about it is, if I did speak, y'all would appreciate him a whole lot more. But I'm not going to give him that kind of break. Anyway, I will tell you that it's not so much the eloquence of a person sitting in the pulpit. It is what the elders, like of this congregation, choose for him to give to feed this flock. That's the importance of a preacher. And one of the things that I just admire about them, it's kind of like my job. I took a few days off on Memorial Day and celebrated it with my two of my grandchildren. I have 7 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren, but I celebrated by catching bass on the Tennessee River. Well, let me rephrase that. My grandson caught them. I didn't catch a thing, but he has that kind of gift. How shall they call them if they don't have a preacher? We need to have preachers because they're on call 24 hours a day, aren't they? If you're sick, call a preacher. The Bible says call the elders, but everybody calls the preacher, right? And if I'm sick and the preacher don't come, well, what's he, playing favorites and that type of thing. So very, very important. So the Bible School of Americas was started in 1965, and this is, I'm going to give you a quick video of the campus here, and there's no sound to this one, so I can kind of give you a heads up. There's our gate, goes in. We're on a 25-acre campus, by the way, that we were fortunate enough to get. One point, we were going to get a Noriega, who happens, I guess he's still in jail, was going to give us an old fort area, but the Catholic Church helped squelch that. And so the Lord brought us to this 25-acre campus. You'll see some of our buildings, and these are apartments for married folks, and we have single student apartments. For Latin America, and there's a playground we use for the kids. I think we have 20-some kids now, excuse me, on campus. One time that was a children's home. Some of you may remember that. Had a children's home there, and the government got involved and wanted us to, we were trying to provide a home, not a placement center. And the government wanted us to add people to it that weren't members of the church. That's a classroom. Going on down to the right here, it's going to be some apartments. You may or may not get to see that, but that's where I stay when I go down there. I go down there every graduation. And I will invite you, or some of you members, to go down to the graduation in December. It is a thrilling experience to hear these young men and their vision of how they're going to use the training that they received. Okay, here's the first year courses. You got 19 courses. You got 20 courses the second year, 20 classes. We call them short courses. That's where the gringo teachers go down and teach something. We're even teaching a little bit of Greek, although I don't think any of that's necessary. Personally, I don't think you need to know Greek to learn the gospel of Jesus Christ. We also have spouse classes. Now, people have asked me before, you teaching women to be preachers? No, we're teaching them to be good, godly women to help support. My 78 years, noticed that if your preacher has a good supporting wife, he's going to be successful. If his wife is not supportive of his work is never going to be at its fullest potential. This is the graduating class, top left of 24. This was the class of 25, 26. This was the graduating class. You know, these 2 women have graduated there. They get a degree also if they finish all the courses. That was who we graduated in December. Here are the countries that were involved in this graduation. You can see Ecuador, Peru, Panama, Guatemala, Colombia. We're still able to get people in and out of Colombia. It was pretty nice. And we had 26. In 26, we had 9 graduates, 2027, 11. And we have graduated over 700 preachers since this school started. Now, how many of them are still preaching? About a third of them have already passed away since 1965. But most of them are involved in some form or fashion in supporting the local congregation, which we are trying to get people who have a plan of what they want to do before they come to school. And so we try to hold them to that plan. Here's some of the flags of the countries we work with. You see the American flag is in the middle there, but close to the middle, there's Panama and the multiple stars on the left. I don't recognize all of them, but Honduras, where I spend a lot of my time. And here's where some of the graduates are. You'll see Panama, Nicaragua, Honduras, and then Peru at the top, Costa Rica, Colombia, and at the very top, Venezuela and Chile. So we got them all over the place. Now, this is not an updated list. I actually have some now in Mexico. I need to change that. So the financial requirements for the school, and okay, first thing I'm going to say here is, there he goes. He's going to talk about money. I am. Do you know that over 1,500 times money is mentioned from Genesis to Revelation? 1,500 times. This is what it costs for one student and with his family, an average about $1,750 per month. Now, folks, that includes a lot of things like the air. We fly them in from Peru. We pay for that. We fly them in from Colombia or whatever country. We pay the transportation in. When they get there, they're given all the supplies that they're going to need for 2 years. We give them a laptop computer. We take care of all their medical needs, medical including dental and vision. It's an all-encompassing charge that fluctuates every year. Then we have a young man who's now attending. He's got 5 children, and we give stipends to these students. And so if I have a wife, I get a larger stipend. If I have one child, I get a larger stipend and everything. So that includes that. Is that the total operational cost of the school? No, that's not. But that's a figure we try to share with you. That's what it takes for that student. And we also do a season of smiles, and that's in December for the kids. And I love these kids, and that's yours truly in that aqua-looking thing there. And I guess I can't really tell, and that's probably just as well who I am. But there's some of the people and the kids that we took Christmas shopping. They get to choose. We give them the money to the parents. They get to have one gift that they want. One gift. And the rest of the money that we give them goes to buy clothing and necessary things. So that's what they get. That is a drive that I raise money for. So that's the season. This little girl, she took my heart. I'll tell you, she was a mess, and she kept flirting with me all the time I was there. I'd have brought her home. Wasn't she a doll? This little boy was awesome. This is 25. I think in 2022, if I remember correctly, something happened that ought to change the way we think. The world population hit 8.25 billion people. 8.25 billion people. And I want us to change the way we say that. It's not 8.25 billion people, it's 8.25 billion souls that are going to spend eternity somewhere. Matthew chapter 7 says the majority of people will not go to heaven. That means family members. That means school friends. That means people you work with. So we've got to think about souls and what that is. So I want to ask you this morning, I don't know how, I'm sure I got a few minutes left. So I want to ask you, how much is a soul worth? How much is a soul worth? I don't see any babies in here. Are these your children? How much is their soul worth? I'm sorry?
Whatever it costs.
Whatever it costs. How much is the soul worth of your husband or your wife? How much? Well, can I tell you how much it was worth to the Lord? That's how much it was worth. But we have a problem in the Lord's church. The Lord's people, based on the research that I have found through people like Eddie out at Harding. He's not a preacher there, a teacher there anymore. He is Eddie Clover is the editor of the commentaries. Drawing a complete Alzheimer blank on the commentary name now. Anyway, but they've done a lot of research. The average member of the Lord's church barely gives 5% of their income to the Lord's church. I don't know what your giving pattern is here. Young people back there, do any of you young people back there have a job? I'm talking, hello. Do any of y'all have a job? Okay. She's saying no, he's talking. Let me tell you, we're not teaching them how to give. I don't remember one sermon when I was growing up that talked about giving of your means back to the Lord's church. I really don't. We hear things like, well, you got to give as you've been prospered. Well, when I was younger, that's not how I did it. I did it based on what was left. Because I wanted that new car, and I wanted this, and I wanted that. You know, it's not like I wasn't like the widows might. I've got a lot of making up to do from what I was taught when I was younger, and I try to encourage my grandkids. Just because you are young, and I'm looking at these young people right here. Just because you are young does not excuse you for not giving back to the Lord now. It doesn't. Stewardship and giving is an integral part of the Lord's church. So that's what I want us to think about today. I want us to think about the world is lost. The majority of the world is lost. We have to sow the seed. Sowing the seed will produce fruit. But in order to do that, we need support. I don't know if there's any time left, but I'm happy to take a question or two. I've either done so well or so bad, and nobody wants to ask a question. I have brochures up here that talk about our work and a newsletter that we publish every quarter. Total transparency, total figures, dollar figures, total things that we do. And I'm happy to answer your questions at any time. Thank you all so much for your attention.